Ripley Shoreline tour. This tour is hosted by the Lake Ripley Management District and with help from Cambridge Cable TV Channel 12. The date is Friday, August 4th, 2006. It's about 10:45 a.m. We just passed the Shore Place Beach area on the north side of Lake Ripley, and we're heading clockwise around the lake. The purpose of this tour is to document current shoreline conditions, boat moorings, piers, and other nearshore structures. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Just as some introduction, Lake Ripley is a 418-acre drainage lake. It is about 1.25 miles across at its widest point. It has a maximum depth of 44 feet, a mean depth of 18 feet. Approximately 8.5% of the lake area is represented by less than 3-foot water depths. 34% of the lake area is represented by water depths of less than 5 feet, and 46% of the total lake area is represented by water depths of less than 10 feet. We have 4.85 miles of shoreline that we're going to be covering today. And again, it's Friday, August 4th, 2006, and we're conducting a tour of the Lake Ripley shoreline for the purpose of documenting current shoreline conditions, boat moorings, piers, and other nearshore structures. This is brought to you by the Lake Ripley Management District and Cambridge Cable TV 12. Heading in a clockwise direction along the northeast shoreline of Lake Ripley. There are close to 160 lakefront homes and cottages that ring the lake, and over 850 homes within a half-mile distance of the lake. And the Lake District incorporates those homes and homes within approximately 3/4 mile distance from the lake. It includes about 7% of the land area of the town of Oakland, but accounts for nearly 70% of the total assessed valuation of the town of Oakland and most of its population. We will soon be approaching the former Arbordell restaurant, a large building that sits right at the lake edge, now a privately owned residence. A survey conducted in 2005 by the Lake Ripley Management District revealed some interesting information. Of those that responded, and these are members of the Lake Ripley Management District, lakefront residences, and those living within about 3/4 mile distance of the lake, had a very good response rate. Of those that responded, reasons for buying property near the lake were natural scenic beauty is the number one reason. Water sport opportunities and quiet recreation were closely followed. Most popular recreational activities were cited as swimming as number one, followed by slow motorboat cruising around the lake and fishing. Again, according to the 2005 resident survey, the most valued lake qualities were The clear water, which obviously is variable from year to year, natural scenic areas, and safe beaches. Biggest current problems cited by the survey were overcrowding and overdevelopment. The survey respondents also indicated that what they felt were the biggest threats as being invasive species, development pressure, and the misuse of fertilizers and pesticides around the lake. I should have mentioned we just passed the Town of Oakland property. It's a 60-foot stretch of frontage back by the old Arbor Dell restaurant. Town of Oakland owns that property and the pier. It's accessible by for public use. We're now approaching Friedel, however you want to pronounce it, Lane. Lake Ripley Lodge sitting on the corner. We're out about 200 feet from the shoreline, which also corresponds with the slow no wake zone on Lake Ripley. Local town ordinance says that boats must operate at the slowest possible speed while still maintaining steerage control within 200 feet of any shoreline of Lake Ripley. Motorized watercraft must also stay within, at distances greater than 100 feet from piers, rafts, and buoyed swim areas when operating at speeds greater than no wake. And boats are included on that list when we're talking personal watercraft. Must stay 100 feet from other boats and other personal watercraft. We're now at the Cedar Shores Association shoreline area on the east side of the lake off of Lake Ripley Road. Northeast side of the lake. Once again, we're conducting a shoreline tour of Lake Ripley. It's Friday, August 4th, 2006. This tour is being hosted by the Lake Ripley Management District with assistance from the local cable station, Channel 12. And the purpose of the tour is to document current shoreline conditions, boat moorings, piers, and other nearshore structures that are in existence on the lake. We're proceeding clockwise around Lake Ripley. We had started at Shore Place Beach. We're now on the east side of the lake, approaching the Milwaukee or inlet or east bay of the lake. Besides the slow no wake zones, also users should be aware that there are no wake times daily. Those times are before 11 a.m. in the morning and after 7:30 p.m. in the evenings. The Lake Ripley Management District a number of years ago also by proclamation set aside Tuesdays as voluntary slow no wake days. That's obviously not enforced, but it's recommended. It was passed. The proclamation was passed as a way of giving more opportunity to our passive recreational users and silent sport enthusiasts. Over the last 13 years, the Lake District has been working with landowners throughout the watershed, but in particular to note, since this is a shoreline tour, we've been working with landowners, lakefront residences that abut the water of Lake Ripley, helping them improve and protect their shorelines. The Lake District has offered cost share assistance to protect shorelines that were undergoing severe erosion. As we make our way along the shoreline, just pay attention to the different strategies for controlling erosion. Some of them were done quite a long time before the Lake District was in existence, such as seawalls, which are no longer permitted by the State Department of Natural Resources. We have rock shorelines, which are often called rock riprap shorelines. And then the more natural shoreline restorations where native plantings were done along a vegetative buffer strip paralleling the shoreline. Each of these different strategies has its own set of benefits and drawbacks, and each site is evaluated on a case-by-case basis to determine what is going to be the most effective best management practice for either controlling the erosion that's occurring, protecting the shoreline, protecting water quality, or enhancing wildlife habitat. We're now entering the north shore of Milwaukee Bay. We just passed some shorelines that were protected using rock riprap, and now we're transitioning into shoreline that's protected with rock riprap but also has native plantings behind the riprap. Those native plantings help make the shoreline more attractive. They filter pollutants that may be running off from lawns and roadsides and driveways before it enters the lake, and it increases the transitional habitat for both fish and upland wildlife around the lake. We're now in the Sylvan Mounds area, Sylvan Mounds Association number 1, I believe, of Lake Ripley. This is a site of a prior Lake District shoreline restoration using bioengineering as a strategy, native plantings and coconut fiber rolls, all biodegradable materials. Another ordinance to be aware of is the burning of yard waste, grass, leaves, branches, etc. is prohibited within 25 feet of the Lake Ripley shoreline, or any stream or ditch that continuously carries water to the lake. Yard waste burning is also prohibited with any street or roadside ditch within the Lake District and Sanitary District boundaries. The purpose of that ordinance is to prevent nutrient-rich, phosphorus-rich ash from washing into the lake and contributing to the weed growth and algae blooms. We're now in the northeast corner of Milwaukee Bay, also known as East Bay or Inlet Bay. It's the location of where the inlet tributary to Lake Ripley transports water from the surrounding 8 square mile watershed into the lake. Lake Ripley has only one inlet and one outlet. We've also entered the no-wake buoyed area. Both Milwaukee Bay and the South Bay are partially buoyed off. Motorized watercraft must operate at slow no-wake speed within buoyed areas. This area also is a designated Department of Natural Resources designated shoreline sensitive area. It was found to be of ecological significance due to the diversity and quality of the aquatic and shoreline plant community and the types of species that were found in this area. The town of Oakland a number of years ago then passed a pier ordinance which restricts the building of or erection of new piers within these designated sensitive areas without getting a special DNR approved permit. We're now looking at the inlet, mouth of the inlet to the lake. Currently, this happens to be the target of weed harvesting, most of our weed harvesting operations. We get a lot of the Eurasian water milfoil, which is an exotic invasive species in Lake Ripley. Some of the biggest milfoil beds are located right out from the inlet. We think because that's where much of the runoff pollution is entering the lake. Over the years, runoff pollution that's been washing off both residential areas and farmland back up in the 8 square mile watershed. The inlet stream is an unnamed stream. It's 4 1/4 miles in length. Half of that stream includes agricultural farm drainage ditches. Back in 1907, the inlet stream to Lake Ripley was only 2.5 miles before the stream was extended and channelized for farm drainage. Lake District has been working over the years with landowners back up in the watershed along these drainage ditches to control erosion through ditch bank reshaping. And we have also worked with landowners and on our own Lake District Preserve to plug drainage ditches that were feeding into the inlet tributary to Lake Ripley. Part of a large-scale wetland restoration effort. We're on the east side of Milwaukee Bay. Again, still in the DNR designated sensitive shoreline area of the lake and within the slow no wake buoyed area. Our weed harvesting efforts in this location target expansive beds of Eurasian water milfoil. The operators do not cut lily pads or diverse native aquatic plant communities, instead leaving those plant beds for fish habitat and for water quality protection purposes. For those who may be just joining us, this is a Lake Ripley Shoreline tour hosted by the Lake Ripley Management District and Cambridge Cable TV 12. The date is Friday, August 4th, 2006. a little after 11 o'clock in the morning. 11 o'clock in the morning. The purpose of this tour is to document current shoreline conditions, piers, boat moorings, and other nearshore structures on the lake. We're proceeding slowly in a clockwise fashion around Lake Ripley. We're now on the southeast corner in Milwaukee Bay, looking at some of the relatively undeveloped shoreline. Right now we're looking at conservancy area. It's a protected shoreline area. It's owned by the Lake Point Homeowners Association, but the Lake Ripley Management District, along with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, holds a joint conservation easement along this shoreline. It's protected for its conservation values. We are about to leave the sensitive shoreline area located in Milwaukee Bay, and we are now approaching, we're a few hundred feet out from the buoy line that marks the slow no wake zone. We're approaching that buoy line and heading towards the town of Oakland public boat landing. So most of the water that enters Lake Ripley is from surface runoff and surface drainage from the watershed, an 8 square mile watershed. We have a watershed to lake surface area ratio of 12 to 1, meaning 12 Lake Ripleys can fit within our watershed. Lakes that have ratios in excess of 10 to 1 generally experience water quality problems due to poor land use practices and other issues that take place up in the watershed. About somewhere between 30 and 45% of the total water budget for Lake Ripley is from groundwater. So groundwater is a sizable component of the water that recharges Lake Ripley, and therefore excessive groundwater pumping would be a concern for maintaining the quality of Lake Ripley in the future. In terms of land uses within the watershed, based on an inventory a number of years ago, about 10 years ago, 70% of the watershed is consisting of agricultural land uses, 15% residential, and 15% either wetland or woodland. We just passed. It looks like it's a DNR fish inventory is what it appears to be. It looks like they're putting out seine nets in the near shore area to collect fish species and do monitoring of near shore fish species. Now approaching very soon here the public boat landing. We're off of Island Lane. the south side of the lake on the Peninsula Point. Until we get to the public boat landing, give a little bit of background. The boat landing is owned by the town of Oakland. It was improved and renovated through a grant a number of years back by the Lake Ripley Management District obtained. It offers, I believe, 16 trailered boat spots. Vehicles and their trailers, 16 of those can fit in the parking area. It's located at the end of Island Lane. It includes a small public pier. There's a trash receptacle, a porta potty, and that's about it for amenities. The fees for using the public landing are $7 daily fee, $20 annual, and the $7 daily fee is for all users. Then for annual passes, there's a $20 annual pass fee for Oakland residents and property owners, and a $30 annual pass fee for non-residents and non-property owners of the town of Oakland. The passes can be purchased at the BP Amoco station, Dan's Gas, in Cambridge on Highway 12, the Piggly Wiggly store, or the town clerk's office at the Oakland Town Hall on County Highway A. We're just passing, or maybe even focusing in on the weed harvester owned by the Lake Ripley Management District, and our operators are getting prepared to launch the weed harvester and do some cutting this morning. We're also looking at the shoreline for the Horde Curtis Scout Camp. The Scout Camp rents the shoreline to the Lake District so we can have our staging area for weed harvesting activities here. This is the location of where we offload our harvested, mostly Eurasian water milfoil plants into an awaiting dump truck, which is then taken to a local farm for composting. Again, this is the Horde Curtis Scout Camp shoreline that we're looking at, a beautiful, undeveloped, heavily wooded shoreline. And for those who are just joining us, this is a Lake Ripley Shoreline tour hosted by the Lake Ripley Management District and Cambridge Cable TV 12. The date is Friday, August 4th, 2006, a little after 11 a.m. We're heading clockwise around Lake Ripley. We started at Shore Place Beach on the north side of the lake, and we're now on the south side of the lake. The purpose of this shoreline, again, is to document current shoreline conditions, including the number and locations and sizes of piers and boat moorings and other nearshore structures. As we leave the Horde Curtis Scout Camp shoreline area, we're now moving further into South Bay. Also a DNR designated ecologically significant and sensitive shoreline area. And a slow no wake buoyed area. Not quite there yet, but that's what we're approaching. As far as pier rules, sort of somewhat of a complicated subject since the pier rules are currently being revised at the state level. a riparian property owner or an owner of lakefront property has the right to put out a pier in most instances, and a pier for every 50 foot of frontage that a riparian property owner owns. For the first 50 foot of frontage, they're allowed 2 boat moorings, and for each additional 50 foot of frontage, 1 additional boat mooring is allowed. So for a, say, 150 foot shoreline, that property owner would be allowed 3 boat moorings on their pier. Piers have to be reasonable in terms of dimension and size, and according to the Department of Natural Resources, that means they have to be less than 6 foot in width and cannot extend greater than the 3 foot water depth or the depth that is necessary to dock a boat of a certain draft, whichever is greater. Piers cannot unreasonably restrict navigation or impact public rights features in waters, which are things such as habitat for endangered species, protected aquatic plant communities. They cannot, your pier cannot extend into your neighboring property's riparian space. It has to be completely contained within your riparian space. For those of you who are just joining us, this is a shoreline tour of Lake Ripley on Friday, August 4th, 2006, brought to you by the Lake Ripley Management District with help from the local cable station, Channel 12. We are now in South Bay. We're looking at some of the protected shoreline areas, DNR designated sensitive shoreline areas on Lake Ripley, where special local ordinances require that any new piers or expansion of existing piers must get a special DNR permit approval before those can occur. We're looking at the Majestic Pines subdivision area. Also, we just passed, I believe, Vasby's Channel, which is a horseshoe channel on the far south side of Lake Ripley. It's a no motor area within the channel. That means the operation of any motors, including trolling motors, are prohibited. We're now at the Lake Ripley Marina. Both Majestic Pines and the marina, and also the Lake Point subdivision that we passed a little while ago, all have either permit restrictions or deed restrictions on the size and number of boat moorings that are allowed on those piers. We're now on the southwest side of Lake Ripley, heading north in a clockwise fashion around the shoreline. Still in a slow no wake zone, but about to exit the slow no wake zone. The purpose of this shoreline tour is to document current shoreline conditions and piers and boat moorings and other nearshore structures that are in existence on the shoreline around Lake Ripley. close to 5 miles of shoreline on Lake Ripley. Over the last 13 years, the Lake Ripley Management District has been actively working with landowners to help control shoreline erosion and restore habitat and water quality benefits that were lost along many of these shoreline stretches over the years due to the clearing of vegetation, installation of lawns and seawalls and beaches and decks and so forth. So to date, about close to 5,000 feet of eroding shoreline have been restored. The Lake District does offer cost sharing assistance for a number of best management practices in addition to shoreline protection work. These can include wetland restorations, drainage ditch plugging or drainage ditch bank shaping, reshaping for erosion control, nutrient management plans for farms, conservation tillage, wetland restorations, rain gardens, a number of different activities. Cost sharing is made available depending on eligibility of the landowner and availability of funds. For lakefront property owners interested in doing any work along their shorelines that would require excavating, filling, dredging, any type of land disturbance. In fact, anywhere within 1,000 feet of the Lake Ripley shoreline, which is considered the shoreline zone, most likely would require permits of some sort, and those landowners are strongly encouraged to contact either the Lake District. We can forward you on to the proper authorities, or call the county zoning department or the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to find out what permits may be required. We're now on the west side of Lake Ripley off of Park Road, heading north. This is on, I believe, Sleepy Hollow Road. Sleepy Hollow Road. Again, for those who are just joining us, this is a shoreline tour of Lake Ripley. Lake Ripley is a 418-acre drainage lake. The lake has a 44-foot maximum depth, 18-foot mean depth, about close to 5 miles of shoreline, and 160 lakefront homes and cottages ring the lake, and an additional 700 or so homes are located within a half-mile distance of the lake. This tour is being hosted by the Lake Ripley Management District and the local cable access station, Channel 12. And we're documenting current shoreline conditions, boat moorings, piers, rafts, and other nearshore structures on the lake. For any questions about Lake Ripley, we encourage you to contact the Lake Ripley Management District. You You can either call us at 423-4537, send us an email at ripley@charterinternet.com, or visit our website at www.lakeripley.org. This approximately 300-foot stretch of wetland shoreline, characterized by the cattails and water willows sticking out of the water. This is also a designated DNR ecologically significant area, deemed as being fragile and sensitive to disturbances, and it's therefore a protected area. We're now approaching the Gulfside Shoreline, Gulfside Association shoreline. This is the west side of Lake Ripley off of Gulfside Lane. And we're heading north towards the outlet of Lake Ripley. You're seeing yellow flowers right now. You're looking at the site of a shoreline restoration completed a few years ago by the Lake District, using a variety of native aquatic and shoreline plantings, primarily for the purpose of guarding against shoreline erosion, but also it's meant to serve as a vegetative buffer to trap runoff pollutants that may be heading towards the lake, and to serve as wildlife habitat. Typically, you will not see Canada geese on one of our shoreline restorations, as geese do not like the taller vegetation in fear of being pounced on by a predator. But in this case, I do notice that there was a number of geese along that shoreline. They may be coming up on the beach area or long grass on one of the neighboring properties. Now at the Alpine Village Lane location. Again on the west side of the lake, heading north in a clockwise direction. We're approaching, but still a couple hundred yards away from the Lake Ripley Park and Community Beach. The park and beach are actually privately owned by the Cambridge Foundation. It is open to the public for a nominal fee. I believe it's $2 currently for each adult and $1 for each child under 16. It's open from 8 in the morning to 8 p.m. in the evening. And seasonal passes are available. For any questions or to reserve a park shelter, you're encouraged to call the Cambridge State Bank. I don't have that number handy, but the volunteer park coordinator, her name is Kathy currently, and she works over at the Cambridge State Bank, and she can help with reservations and answering any questions. beach does have a protected swim area that's cordoned off by buoys. The buoys extend along approximately 300 foot of sand beach area, and they extend approximately 300 feet out into the lake. And motorized watercraft are required to operate at slow-no wake speed within 100 feet of the buoyed swim area. For slow-no wake buoyed areas, slow-no wake is not required until you actually enter that buoyed area. Motorized boats are prohibited from entering the swim zone. And we just passed the Willerup Bible Camp. Once again, we're on the west side of Lake Ripley, looking at the Lake Ripley Park and Beach area off of Park Road. And once again, for those of you who are just joining us, welcome to beautiful Lake Ripley. We're conducting a shoreline tour on August 4th, 2006. This is brought to you by the Lake Ripley Management District and Cambridge Cable TV 12. Just leaving the Lake Ripley Park and Beach area, heading north. We'll soon be approaching the outlet of Lake Ripley in the northwest corner. Right now we're looking at the cemetery shoreline. Sorry to have to repeat this for folks who have been with us the whole time, but the purpose of this shoreline tour is to document existing shoreline conditions on the lake. The Lake District has been actively working with landowners over the last 13 years, improving shorelines, protecting them against severe erosion, attempting to increase fish and wildlife habitat by installing native vegetation that acts as a barrier for runoff, provides transitional habitat for wildlife, moving back and forth from aquatic to upland areas. And also screening structures from the lake. Obviously, some of these shorelines have not been restored. There's a variety of erosion control measures that are in place. Some of them were installed well before the Lake District and as it was involved. We're seeing riprap shorelines, concrete seawalls, there's metal seawalls. The seawall type pest management practices are no longer permitted by the Department of Natural Resources. The seawalls are no longer permitted because they act as a barrier for turtles and frogs and other amphibians and wildlife that need to have access both to the water and the upland areas for reproducing and surviving and so forth. Seawalls can also create flank erosion where the seawall ends if there's the adjoining property is not protected with rock or seawall or other hard armoring technique. Occasionally you'll see erosion occurring along those edges. You're looking right now at a tree fall. This was on purpose. The tree was found to be in poor health and needed to come out anyway. The Lake District worked with the landowner to get the proper permits to drop the tree in the lake, and that lake is now going to serve to protect against shoreline erosion by muffling wave energy and ice push in the winter, and also serve as additional fish habitat and sun basking sites for turtles. We are now at the outlet to Lake Ripley on the northwest corner. This is where water leaves the lake and drains into Koshkonong Creek. Koshkonong Creek then drains into the Rock River, and the Rock River drains into the Mississippi. So Lake Ripley's 8 square mile watershed is part of the larger Rock River drainage basin, which is then part of the much larger Mississippi River basin. So we're now on the north side of the lake, northwest corner, where Park Road and Ripley Road intersect. And we're about to conclude the shoreline tour shortly here, arriving back at Short Place Beach where the tour began. Now looking at the north shoreline off of Ripley Road. And we'd like to again thank the local cable station, Channel 12, for assisting the Lake Ripley Management District in documenting current shoreline conditions on Lake Ripley, boat moorings, piers, and other nearshore structures. And we're done. About to conclude our survey here. This is Lake Ripley Shoreline Tour on Friday, August 4th, 2006.